Hey y'all, getting ready to hook up the trailer here. I've kind of made a marketplace purchase yesterday and going to pick it up today. It's just about 20 degrees out right now. It was 15 this morning, pretty cold. Anyway, I got the truck warming up a little bit, and I found a Jeep on Marketplace that I'm gonna go pick up. Okay, just got loaded up, fixing to head home. See it right there. Get out of here. Alright, just made it home. This was actually pretty local to me, so it was real easy to just run over and pick it up. I didn't have much of a drive, so I didn't really video much as far as hauling it. This is a 99 Grand Cherokee Limited, which as far as I know is the highest trim level for these vehicles back in that day anyway. As far as I know, if they were telling me the truth, the only real issue it has is a charging problem. And it's got, I'll have to show it in a minute, but it's got an external voltage regulator under the hood that somebody's tried to wire up. I think the computers are kind of bad about going out on these and causing the issue of not charging. They had a new alternator put on it, so it's got a brand new alternator, so I feel like it'll either be in the wiring or the computer itself to actually fix the problem versus having the external regulator on it. The inside's not bad. The headliner's a little bit saggy in the front, and there's a little wear on the leather, but mostly just the driver's seat. Got a sunroof, and it's, it needs cleaned up, but it's fairly clean. Got the heated seats. Has I think those are radio controls on the steering wheel. I've not spent a lot of time in one of these. This right here looks kind of bad. I may replace that at some point if it's not too costly. And I think this is I don't know if this is the memory on the seat position. I don't know if all that stuff works just yet. And like I said, these vehicles are kind of new to me. I know this one, they said the regulator or something's bad, the window's falling down. I'll have to fix that. You can see no rocker rust. Right here is the only rust coming through on the whole body. The inner rockers have a little rust, but everything structural underneath is really solid. So I think it'll actually, should last a good while. The paint obviously is not new anymore. It's got the clear coat coming off in places. And this is the only time I've looked at it since yesterday. I spent about 45 minutes looking at it. So it came with 4 brand new tires because the tires on it are no good. I even got a gas can, looks like. She said they got everything they wanted out of it, but it came with 4 brand new tires. It smells like a tire shop in there. Those are Arturo tires, which is, I don't know if that's, I've heard of them, so maybe that means they're somewhat of a name brand. And over here, it's about the same. No real body damage. It needs a real good cleaning. Assuming I get it running and driving good, I think I'll buy some newer, maybe Rubicon wheels or something and put on it. Possibly a 2-inch lift at some point, just something small. This has the 4.7 V8, and it sounds really good. I was able to just put a battery on it, start it, and load it. This fender's the worst. I don't know. I almost think maybe that will come off with some work, or maybe that's clear coat. Might be clear coat or paint gone. It's hard to tell. But you know, I paid $1,000 for this thing. Drove it on the trailer. So, you know, what do you expect for that? You know, it's got new rear calipers on it. The pads look okay. Rotors aren't new or anything, probably. It's the Quadra drive, which means it's it's all-wheel drive, high range, and then you have the option of 4-low. From my research, I would rather have had the Select Track, which gives you the option of 2-wheel, 4-wheel, neutral, 4-low. It's more standard like a truck would be. But like I said, for $1,000, not going to be real picky about that. It does have the trailer wiring 7-pin on it and Reese hitch, so that's nice. If I'm going to haul my razor with it, I can do that. Didn't seem to have any big oil leaks, and all the fluids look good. So I'm going to get this thing off the trailer. And once I get it in the shop, it's cold out. Once I get it in the shop, I'll run y'all through the engine bay, and we'll take a better look at a few things. So this thing was idling high, and I thought maybe it's something to do with it not having a battery in it when I bought it. Sometimes throttle bodies have to relearn the idle position, the idle air valve and all that stuff. But I just took it for a quick spin down the road. Transmission shifts good, engine sounds really good. But when I got it back and pulled it in here, luckily it did it in here, the engine finally idled down. I thought I was getting somewhere, but it started missing and died. So just as a demonstration, this is what it's doing. It's just starting and dying. Okay, so before I get too deep into anything here, I'll just show y'all the engine bay. Everything over here, you know, looks pretty normal until you get over, you know, to the middle here. You can tell that the alternator has been replaced. But right here where the alternator harness comes in, you can see they've spliced these two wires, this red and this black. So the red makes a big loop-de-doo, you know, nobody needs zip ties. And then, you know, solder your connection, but don't heat shrink it, I guess. Don't tape it. And then it goes down to this voltage regulator that doesn't belong, that they've mounted there. So, and then the black, I haven't even traced it yet. It comes over and then goes into this green, which also goes into the regulator. And they've got some weird stuff grounded there with the regulator bolt. And there's a a relay here, which says hello, which I think would be some kind of lights, but I don't know if it's factory stuff. I don't think so, but maybe. It's missing a blue wire there, and then these oranges are one of them is under this main hot for the fuse box here, and the other one goes up here and goes under what looks to be the wiper relay. So I don't know if that's just something somebody did to fix wipers or try to fix wipers. I'll have to dig into it. You can see the battery cables are a mess. They're broke, and you can't hardly use something like that. They've added them a little ground, this white wire that goes down here to the engine. And it's probably making ground, but it ain't much. It needs replaced with some proper terminals on it. And what else do we have? There's another ground wire here that also goes over and grounds on this external voltage regulator. So I've got some troubleshooting to do in the wiring, but I'm hoping none of that is the reason that it's not continuing to run. I wish it would trip a check engine light. It kind of acts like it could have a vacuum leak, and it's, I don't know, just struggling to overcome it when it finally tries to settle down with the idle, but I'm not sure yet. I have to do a little research. It's always interesting when you get a vehicle that you're not familiar with and haven't been around, so you don't know the history. All right, y'all, it's the next day. I'm literally just trying to start this thing to get it to move. It'll start on ether, but it won't start at all on its own. It's odd to me that I drove it down the road and it was fine, and now it won't even run. I'm just wondering if it's out of gas. The fuel tank shows all the way full, but the gauges don't seem to work correctly anyway. The RPM and speedometer does. I'm not sure, and the temperature seems to work, but volts and oil pressure doesn't work. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's out of gas. So I'm gonna put some gas in and see if it'll run again. All right, let's prime it a few times. I'll put a couple gallons in. I think I hear it picking up. And it had a gas can in the back when I bought it, so. Ain't that something? Well, that's the easy fix, huh? Now I know the gas gauge doesn't work. You hear the engine sounds good though. It's cold today too, it's about 20 degrees. All right, y'all, it's the next day. We've had some snow and I haven't had a chance to really mess with it today. I had to back it out earlier to get the plow on my four-wheeler. I wanted to plow my driveway and a couple others for the neighbors, but anyway, I just thought I'd try to do a quick rundown on this thing before I get into it too far, because I know me and I'll have stuff fixed and before I get a chance to kind of video what's going on if I don't do it now. Anyhow, it looks, decent in here. Doesn't look too bad. We'll start out under the hood here. I kind of opened everything up because the hood shocks don't work, and neither does the rear hatch shocks. They're all blown out, as is pretty normal for this age of vehicle. I did kind of want the V8, and I'll get into that in a minute, but I guess I should start out by saying I just kind of been wanting a four-wheel drive SUV V8 on market, and I've been looking on Marketplace. And the reason for that is I have 3 diesel trucks, and then we have my wife's car, which is a newer SUV. But I don't personally have anything gas to get in and go, and all my trucks are pretty decent size, and I guess what it amounts to is nothing is quiet or smooth or easy to park like this would be. And this is also four-wheel drive, so you can get around anywhere you want pretty easy. These things have a pretty big following, and I think this is a WJ Grand Cherokee 99 model. They kind of are underrated a little bit as far as their capabilities, because they're the last solid axle Grand Cherokee, and they really held up pretty well in general, it seems like. They do have some quirks, so but I was wanting something for that reason, and also a buddy bought a Suburban that I ride with. I ride side by side with, I should say, and we're kind of wanting to, maybe me, him, and another buddy or two want to go do some just overnight camping and riding, and not have to spend the money to get a cabin and stuff. So this is a V8. It's rated to pull, I think, 5,000 pounds, and my trailer and the RZR shouldn't be more than about 3,000, I don't believe. I think that should be about the max that it would weigh. So it should be well under that. And there's actually plenty of room for me to sleep in there from what I can tell. And that probably won't happen a lot, but my wife and I take camping trips every now and then too, and I think we could both sleep in there as well. As far as the fluids, everything seemed to look good. I don't know that the 4.7 is supposed to have green coolant, but this one does. I'm not sure if it matters that much. Some people say it does, some people say it doesn't. This is engine oil, and I haven't added any to it. You can see fairly clean, and it's right at the full mark. I mean, perfect. So hopefully that's a good sign also. Trying to do this one-handed without shortening it on the battery. And this is the transmission fluid. I haven't checked it running, but it looks really nice. Just looking at the stick here, it kind of looks darker on the phone than it is, but I don't, doesn't smell burnt. Sorry, this is wiggling so much. Doesn't smell burnt. Wouldn't expect any problems just from looking at the fluid, at least. Obviously I'll have to drive it. I did not get to test drive this. I just started with my jump box, heard it run. The engine sounds really good. It's real smooth. There's no pecks, no lifter noise, no roller follower noise or anything like that. It sounds really good to me. And if you notice, it sounds like it's idling high. It's hard to tell in the video, but the idle won't come down under about 14 or 1600 where it really likes to be. And that's another reason I'm thinking it could be PCM related. I've seen other people just researching online that have had the same issue, and the PCM was also the cause of their high idle. These can have some issues with the idle air control valve, but I also have some missing gauges on my instrument cluster they're not working. They're there, but they're not working. I believe that's PCM related also. I've seen some people say that. So before I go to diagnosing anything else, I'm probably going to do a PCM. The only thing I am going to do first is make sure that it's not sending a signal to the alternator if I can. At least maybe try to make sure it's not commanding the alternator to charge. And if it's not, if I don't have broken wires, then I know I need a PCM anyway. If that be the case, there's no point in me digging into everything else without putting a PCM in it first. So, and they're not crazy expensive. So, moving along, the wheels are pretty dingy. I like this style wheel. I mean, I think they look good, but you know, once they get all the clear coat peeling off of them, and I mean, I don't think they're that dirty. They're just, you know, over time they don't look good. The lug nuts look bad. And the tires are really dry rotted. I haven't looked at the date code, but they're pretty dry rotted. So I went ahead and actually today, which like I said, it's the next day after me picking this thing up, I went ahead and bought a set of takeoffs from a Wrangler, and I'll put a picture in here of the style I bought. And they have they're pretty wore, the tread, but the tires aren't dry rotted, and the wheels look nice. They're good and clean, and they bolt right on these vehicles here. So I gave $100 for the wheels and tires. That'll get me rolling until if I like the looks of the wheel pretty good, then I'll probably just buy me some better tires at some point and put on them. This came with a brand new set of 16-inch tires, but all these newer wheels are 17s and 18s and 20s, and I'll probably just try to sell those brand new tires and put those towards what I want, which would probably be some all-terrains. So look inside. This mirror is not too good. It probably needs replaced. This right here is not the best. I don't know how hard it would be to replace or fix that. The seat is not too bad. I mean, it's obviously showing a little wear. It's got 202,000 miles on it. You can tell I've been in it, but it's comfortable for me. I'm pretty big, and I do have to kind of watch that if I'm looking at vehicles, but it is comfortable for me. The radio didn't seem to work. It's got the dual climate control, heated seats. I haven't tried most of that stuff yet because it's not charging, and I've just got a battery temporarily on it with those really crappy battery cables. So, and I'll have to buy the right battery once I get it going. It's the Quadra drive, so it's either 4-wheel all the time, which is high range, or you can go to 4-low. But it does have 4-low, which I like. The parking brake seems to work. Transmission, I did drive it down the road in the dark just because I couldn't stand it. And the transmission shifted fine, just no farther than I went. But it's got cruise, all that. It's limited, like I said, so it's got pretty much everything that you could have got back then. It's got radio controls on the back side of the wheel. Got the fake wood grain or whatever on the dash there. This window doesn't go up or down, it wants to fall down, so I'll have to probably get into that panel and fix that. And then I'll have to re-glue some door trim. But the seats look pretty good. The floor is not bad. It needs cleaned, but it's not bad really. I kind of need a light, but anyway, all this stuff was in here when I got it. I don't know, jug of coolant. Hopefully it's not drinking it too bad. Hopefully it doesn't have blown head gaskets or something. It's always a possibility. And then I'm assuming the AC probably doesn't work since they bought that can to charge it. It had tires in here when I bought it, and I didn't realize it, but it does have this cover here, which is kind of nice. You know, if you put some tools or anything of value in there, you can at least cover it up and people can't just see what you've got. The back seats fold flat, and which would give you a flat sleeping platform, or to put something, you know, more wood or just whatever you want to put in the back of this thing. It gives you a big flat area. So, you know, most SUVs do that. But this panel is busted. I'm not too worried about that right now. Nobody's going to see that. I'll worry about that later. Might even just try to plastic weld it a little bit or something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's an older vehicle. So, no big deal. The paint's not bad, but, you know, it's got clear coat peeling and bubbling. And so, I guess probably mostly on these, I think these are plastic parts here. But once again, no big deal. I may paint the roof rails again at some point. And but just looking around it, no rocker rust or anything really. It's, you know, it's pretty solid, and everything structural underneath is nice. It looks good. And power seats do work. You can see the passenger seat's nice. The driver's one's the only one with any wear that I've seen. And it's not terribly beat up for 25 years old. This fender is the worst. I think I mentioned that, but once again, not a deal breaker. I did go ahead and order new lug nuts with my wheels that I bought, so I think just that alone will make it look a lot better. And I really didn't want to drive it on these tires, so like I said, instead of putting these tires on these wheels, I figured I'd go ahead and buy me some takeoffs and just do it the way I want to from the start. It's a shame not to be able to make use of tires that you got. I looked these tires up, they're like $104 a piece on Walmart. Paid $1,000 for the Jeep. So, you know, I mean, really, if you got your money back on the tires, it's a $600 vehicle. But I hate to not make use of them, but it's not what I want to do. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for right this moment. I've spent long enough walking y'all around. I'll try to show y'all a little bit of trying to diagnose the charging system. I'm going to rip all that extra wiring out. We're just going to get rid of that right from the get-go. And if the PCM is not working right, then that'll be the first thing I do is go ahead and order PCM. I'm not real worried about changing the oil yet and that stuff. I will do that once I'm satisfied it's running good, but I don't think the oil is that old. It doesn't look that bad. So without driving it, overall it seems like a decent vehicle. I haven't jacked it up and shook on the wheels or anything. You know, there may be a lot more that I end up getting into, but you know, it doesn't look like anything's falling off of it. So anyway, y'all stick around. I'll get into some diagnostics. Maybe we can get this thing fixed and go on a real test drive and see what I've actually got. All right, y'all. I got license and insurance on this thing today. I've not done anything else to it. I've not fixed the PCM or anything like that. I am thinking about maybe trying to take it on a little drive just to see how it does. But I thought if this regulator they added would work, you know, I could doctor it up enough to make it down the road. I'm not wanting to go far. I just would like to get it up to temperature and see how everything does before I spend much money. They've got it wired into the alternator pigtail back here, this external regulator, and the wires going to it are fine. They're just way too long and scattered, and this one needs some tape at least. And I wasn't sure how these wired at first, but after looking on the internet, they have it wired correctly. And then this blue wire that comes out of that heat shrink and goes this way turns into a purple wire, and it goes to this relay that was added here that I didn't know what it was. And I guess if they've done it correctly, what should be happening here is when you power the, so they've tied it into this, I guess this is the kicker wire for this relay. That's what should fire it up and make it send power to this regulator, which is what it has to do. And it looks like the way they've got it figured up to do that is they've got it under this wiper relay, which is kind of odd because you don't always want to run your wipers. So I'm going to see if there's something better I can easily power it off of. Really, you should be able to just put it under a fuse for the parking lights or something. It shouldn't take a lot of power to kick that relay in. So I'm going to figure something out there, and they'll also tell me if my alternator's good. So let me figure out what I'm going to do for my wiring on that, and we'll go from there. So I've clipped my ground lead to that hot wire. That should come hot when the wipers are on if they've got this wired correctly. And then I've grounded this into my test light. So I haven't tried this yet, but when I turn the wipers on, that should come on if they've got it. So the key's already on. So that should make my alternator charge. When I turn the wipers off, the alternator should quit charging. So let's just try to verify that real quick before I take anything apart. Okay, battery's been on the trickle charger. I'm at 1218, and when I turn the wipers on, the alternator should start charging. So let me start this. It's 20 degrees. It's been sitting, so I got a bad connection. All right, those wires and terminals are pretty bad. I've got some coming for it. So. All right, you can see it's actually using power instead of making it. Let's turn the wipers on. It kicked my test light on, but it's still not making voltage. So if I'm correct here, this green wire, which is one I'm probed into, you can't see it, but it should be getting fed a ground signal from this regulator to control charging, and the other wire should be hot. So if I'm looking at this correctly, they have these two wires swapped. This is very quick and dirty. You can tell I just swapped the wires there. I'm gonna plug this back in and start it up, and we'll see if it sparks fire, if it charges or what. All right, we'll give it another shot. Doesn't look like it's charging. I'm assuming they might have either hurt that regulator or the alternator, one or the other. Well, when I got in to move it, it was idling at 1800, and then all of a sudden it calmed down and my oil pressure and voltmeter started working, and actually the fuel is going down. It was stuck on full, so something changed. Maybe it finally made a good ground somewhere that it wasn't making a good ground. Like I said, I've got to fix these cables. Alright y'all, since this thing started acting right, it idled down. The green wire is a computer controlled ground for the alternator. If I plug this to that, I've got it on my hot over here. I've got ground. And if I move this to the ground, this one is supposed to be, 12 volts hot, and I've got that. I'm gonna just splice these back together real quick and see what I had, see what happens. Okay, I spliced this back in. The factory harness plugs back into the alternator. This thing is charging sweet right off the PCM. I'm not sure what caused it to all of a sudden idle down and do what it did. I'm pretty sure that's what made the change in the PCM working. It's like it started working again. But like I said, these connections are terrible. I've got a homemade ground here. I'm got to fix this regardless, but I'll be fixing that before I buy any PCM for it or anything now. I'll drive it a little bit and just see how it acts before I buy any parts. But like I said, I for sure need to fix those before I get too carried away driving it. I'm kind of blown away that it just started working again. But it had been idling high and then it settled down all of a sudden, and I mean, it's running perfect and the gauges work. Well, my truck's running outside, so don't mind the noise, but last night I was able to get this thing charging off the PCM. All the gauges came back and it was running good. I wasn't, it's not like I figured that out, it just kind of happened that way. I'm not sure what exactly happened to make it do all that, but it's kind of like the PCM or something can't, I don't know if it's got a circuit that isn't right or what. But it was running good. Took it up to the house, parked it for a minute, and I got in to pull out of the driveway. I left it running. When I got in to pull out of the driveway, it would just barely go. And I restarted it and actually drove it a small piece, and it did the same thing again. And so I put a voltmeter on it because I suspected sometimes the PCM or ECM on a vehicle will do that in order to keep the alternator from overcharging too bad if it's making too many volts. And I checked it, and sure enough, it's making, I don't know, like 17 or 18 volts, which is way too much. So it's commanded to charge, but it's charging too much. So got a new battery, and I've got a set of hydraulic crimpers and terminal ends. I'm going to replace all this right now, both these ends and the battery. This battery is good, but it's too big, it's too tall. So I'm going to replace these ends with military style, and then I've got ring terminals to crimp on to all these connections. It's got some really bad connections, so I don't know if that'll fix anything, but it's well worth a try. And I'm also going to get rid of this regulator and this wiring here and be done with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and we'll see if it fixes anything. So here's all the extra junk that came out. And this is what the terminals looked like. I mean, I didn't do that. That was already done. So they were in just great shape. This is what I've got now. I crimped ends on everything. Got new military terminals, obviously a new battery that fits correctly. Just a cheapie from Walmart. And then I also changed this ground right here, which my terminals were a little too big for the ground wire, so I actually crimped the terminals and then just soldered the wire in. So that's my engine, one of my engine grounds. So anyway, they had a little bitty gauge wire going over there before with some real janky connectors, and so it should be good now. Everything's tidied up, got all the extra wiring out, and it looks more like it should. So I probably need to do this better at some point. I'll probably solder it and maybe even get rid of these wires and this tape and just change it all. But anyway, for now I'm gonna start up and see how it does. I don't know if I could have been having bad connection issues before, causing it to overcharge. It's just hard to say. There was too much going on. So at least now I know my battery and ground situation should be a little better. Well, the PCM's acting right for the time being, except the fuel gauge is flaky. It comes and goes. All my gauges are there. It's charging correctly. Actually pulling my four-wheeler and plow on the trailer. Seems to be doing okay so far. I'm just running around town here some. Hopefully it doesn't leave me on the side of the road. That would be ideal. But drives good. Seems to be pretty smooth. The tires on it are pretty bad, but like I said, I'm not going very far at all. Just running over to play on my grandmother's drive, so this thing was running fine. I've got the new battery and terminals on it, so I am going to have a rebuilt or a new computer sent to me. I think this one's flaky still, and I don't really trust it, but I'm pretty satisfied the PCM is the issue, because I actually messed with it some yesterday, kind of took it apart, and then it started working again. So I'm confident that's what's going on with this thing. But it's a quiet, smooth, pretty smooth vehicle. I'm sure I've got some things to work through on it. The heat doesn't seem too good, but I don't know, it may be the plugged up heater core, hard to say. But got plenty to do still, but to have $1,000 in this thing and be driving it and it running as good as it is, I absolutely can't complain so far. So so far so good. Hopefully I'm not walking. I think this is the first sunlight we've really had since I bought this thing, so just a quick look at it. It's getting ready to look a little different. Almost looks tan in the light, but I think it's more like a gray. Anyway, I'm gonna pull it in the garage and I'll show y'all what we're gonna do. Alright, well, the rotors, they don't look the best, but this thing sat for a while, and they're not grooved too bad. I mean, they do have some lines in them, but nothing horrible. Tie rod end feels tight. This boot is good. I know the one on the other side isn't good, it's broke. I do have grease fitting here, so that's good. And I don't know if the bottom one probably doesn't have a grease fitting you can get to. A lot of the time they don't. That boot is starting to crack. but it's not broke yet. Wheel speed sensor. Brake line doesn't look too bad. So if you look, I mean, all the unibody looks pretty nice, and the, you know, shock mounts aren't rusted out. Everything looks pretty decent. So here's the rear. Here's the new calipers and pads they put on. They did keep the old rotor, but it's got some grooves, but they don't seem warped too bad. A little bit I've driven it, so can't really complain too much. You see no rust there. All the structure looks good. This rusty looking piece is just a link for the top of the rear end, but everything it goes into is solid. It's just kind of got its own rust going on. And the drive shaft's got some rust on it, but I mean, other than that, it's just really solid structurally. So axle bearings feel good in the rear too. I got both fronts done. Everything felt good up there, so I'm gonna clean this aluminum up around the hub here so that my wheel will go on okay and seat correctly. But anyway, I don't see any issues, so I'm gonna finish bolting up my wheels. All right, there she is. I wiped those wheels off with a dry towel just to get the dirt off of them, but they need cleaned up pretty good. For sure, the whole thing needs washed. I drove it in the salt spray and everything yesterday, so it definitely needs washed up, but it looks a lot better. Those wheels make it kind of shine a little bit, actually. Wasn't sure if they were my favorite when I bought them, but I think I like them pretty good. And I was in this door frame